Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and Smart, bringing people together.
Live from the GBM studios in Belize City, it's Open Your Eyes. Start your morning right with your hosts, Sabrina Daly and Isani Caetano.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I am Isani Caetano.
And I'm Sabrina Daly.
Good morning, Sabrina.
Good morning, Isani.
It is Tuesday.
It is.
And it feels a bit odd that I'm on set with you
Yeah,
this
it's a
morning.
Monday, Tuesday because you're here. What are you doing here, man?
I needed some time yesterday morning to deal with some stuff.
No, we're happy to have you here any day.
I'm happy to be here as well. So I'm going to be with you back to back.
Yeah.
Today and tomorrow.
All right.
And I'm looking forward to the shows ahead.
Well, I'm also looking forward to the conversations that we are set to have as well. So let's jump straight into that.
So this morning, we're going to be discussing the 13th Amendment from a legal and an administrative perspective. That means we're going to be having in studio with us this morning the Minister of Home Affairs, and he's going to be accompanied by the Attorney General. Our second conversation will be with the organizers of Fiestarama as they bring bold celebration to Orange Joie. That's going to be one to look forward to as well.
All right. Well, let's jump straight into some of the things that we think you guys should know before you leave your homes this morning. Starting off with two bodies of female minors found in a sewage pit in Bay Vista yesterday. This is something that we will be closely following and providing you information on later on in our newscast. Also, Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras before the ICJ over Sapadilla Keys. Malcolm Jamal Warner passes away. This one's definitely taking some conversation online. Miss Universe 2025 costume submissions. Are they AI generated? And KTV The Remix Night 3 rocks on tonight. Isani, let's jump straight into it.
So, in our evening news on Monday, we spoke of a developing story involving two miners down in Bay Vista, right? And the fact that they were found, their bodies were found in what was initially described as a well.
Yeah.
But it turns out to be a sewage pit, right? And it was later identified, the bodies were later identified, I'm sorry. And so we have a team that's heading down to Bay Vista this morning. It's a tragic incident.
Yeah.
I believe that the miners were siblings, right? And the circumstances surrounding how they ended up in the pit and subsequently lost their lives is something that we're going to be getting to the bottom of. But when I think about Bay Vista, it wouldn't be the first time that we have been down to that southern community to cover something where persons fall into wells or open bodies of water and lose their lives, right? In this case, like I said, it's most regrettable. I mean, kids are out on summer vacation. I can't account for where the parents were or where the adult supervisors would have been or what have you. But kids are out on summer vacation. They're running about the yard. They're out in the open, you know, being kids.
Yeah.
And when you come across an incident like this, it's absolutely heartbreaking.
I mean, they're curious minds too. My understanding was that these children, they simply went out to run an errand. That is yet to be confirmed. But you're right. There are many, many opportunities that people in general, not only children, could lose their lives to something as simple as that. And so it's really devastating to know now that two lives are lost. I can't imagine what the family is feeling like at this time. especially if the circumstances are the ones that we are supposedly learning them to be. As you can see there on the screen, that's an idea of what the situation looked like when they were able to retrieve the bodies of these two miners. And so we will be providing further updates on that later on in our newscast. But moving things along, Isani, one that we're also equally following, and this is a little bit more on the legal side, is the ICJ to hear Guatemala's bid to intervene in the Belize-Honduras territorial dispute of the Sapodilla Keys.
Yes, and it is an interesting development, at least for our newsroom, simply because we were down in the Sapodillas a few weeks ago. I had a team down there, Brittany and Darrell, who were on an overnight trip where they were looking at certain areas of the country where the Belize Fund for Sustainable Development, for a Sustainable Future is doing its work.
Yeah.
And so Hunting Key, which falls within that range, was right there. But to what's taking place here, you would recall a few years ago, so the Sapodillas have always been claimed by Belize, right? But with the entire territorial dispute between Belize and Guatemala, so Guatemala is laying claim over all of Belize, its waters and what have you. So that one you could have seen coming, right? Then Honduras enters and says, okay, since it's geographically in between Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras in terms of the territorial sea space, Honduras jumps in and says, no, but that's for we, right? And so this is going before the World Court in November, and it forms part of a bigger legal dispute over sovereignty, right? In the case of Belize, it's fighting for its own sovereignty, for our own sovereignty, and that of its territorial waters, including all the islands and what have you.
Yeah, and Guatemala would say the same.
Yeah. And then Honduras comes out of nowhere, like I mentioned, right? So this is definitely something that we're going to be watching closely.
Yes, all right. Well, moving things along, now this one is more on the international scene. Now, for you 90s babies, you might be familiar with Malcolm Jamal Warner. Well, I recognize his body of work from the Bill Cosby Show, and I'm kind of really at the end of the 90s there. So I'll say 90s, but I know Bill Cosby goes back even further.
It ran from 86 to 92, actually.
Okay, so say 86, at just the beginning of the 90s. But yeah, Malcolm Jamal Warner passed away yesterday, or July 20th, that was on Sunday. Such an untimely passing. I understand that he drowned. He was actually still working, making great bodies of work. I believe he was in a Netflix show called The Resident or something like that.
He had a podcast too called Not All Hood, which featured a little earlier this year, not towards the end of 2024. But here we go, Sabrina. So for most people who are my age or thereabout, particularly young men, watching Theo on TV was the business, right?
Yeah.
And what's funny here is that I had an opportunity to meet him in person.
Really?
Right here in Belize.
Okay.
Right? This would have been around 2007.
Okay.
I was working on another media house, and we had a countdown show, and he appeared as a guest. But what was funny, and this is just my own personal recollection, what was funny is that, yes, he is Malcolm Jamal Warner, right? But he is so synonymous with the character Theo that when you see him, the first thing that you're seeing, hey Theo.
Yeah.
And I was bricked immediately, right? So I went into full fanboy mode, right? And then he says, you cannot make any references to Theo or the Cosby Show because that's under license to the creators and the network and what have you.
Right.
So he was there in front of us, myself and the co-host, as Malcolm Jamal Warner. But he wasn't there in his capacity as an actor. He was there on two fronts, right? In his capacity as a musician. So he gave me a CD that I still have at home with his autograph. And then he was also talking about activism, right? And so that's my personal fond memory of him. But going back to the 80s and the early 90s, there were, in my opinion, 3 male black actors who had an impact on sitcoms and what have you, right? Small screen. So Malcolm was one of them. And I also think about Will Smith naturally as Fresh Prince and Kadeem Hardison from In a Different World, right? So those are the 3 black men on television that shaped a lot of us growing up around that time.
Yeah.
There are others, but those are my 3. And I'm simply putting him up there because, like I said, the character Theo can't escape from that if you're watching The Cosby Show, if you grew up around that period of time.
You know, I think that speaks to the level of talent and skill that he had when you're so good that they can't separate you from your role or from the character that you played. But for me, what really stands out, and that's probably more because of the generation that I come from, is more of what he represented. I think, you know, looking back at how far he's been in the business and the fact that he's still been able to remain relevant and have a level of respect is what is important as well. Because when you're working in show business, it's not necessarily guaranteed that you're always going to be working, but at least you want a level of respect for the body of work that you put out, for the things that you say yes to, because you could decide to, you know, when business is slow, you can go and do a toothpaste commercial, but he really has quality work under his belt, or he had at least quality work under his belt, and I think he will be remembered for that, for the level of example that he set for young men as well. The mere fact that you, Asani, meeting him only once could recount that experience and still hold him at such high regard. And so he passed away yesterday. As we mentioned, he drowned while on vacation in Costa Rica. And so that too was such an untimely death, and one that we feel a sense of sorrow for here as well, especially because of the influence that he has had on us.
Yes.
But that does it for some of the things that we think you should know. We do want to also highlight KTV The Remix a little later on in our show as well. And just because we have a tad bit of time, I do want to touch really quickly on the Miss Universe topic. You would know that Miss Universe Belize was recently selected, and with that also comes the costume decision, where a big part of the Miss Universe competition and show involves costume display. And that usually is something significant to the country that would be representing. And so I believe it was last year the Miss Universe Belize committee put together a costume competition where persons, designers locally could conceptualize what they believe the Miss Universe Belize delegate should wear on that international stage. Well, this year they suggested that the costume be something aligned with our national bird, the keelbill toucan. And so we've been seeing submissions since then. I believe yesterday they shared the shortlisted 3 costumes for persons to choose from. They're asking for the public to vote via liking on social media pages. Now, what people are saying, though, online, as you can see displayed there, is that the 3 submissions look very similar, Isani. As you can see, there, well, that one is not the keelbill toucan. I will say that there, and that's another conversation that we should be having. But there's a conversation surrounding the usage of AI, or at least allegedly the usage of AI for these costumes. They're very similar. The placement of the bird on the shoulder. We've also been seeing some engagement from persons who also expressed that they submitted and their pieces were not shortlisted. We did not see what they look like. But I think this is a deeper conversation that could be had where artificial intelligence is concerned, and how easily creatives could be overshadowed by AI. This is an example. Someone made a post on their social media. They used ChatGPT, inserted a prompt saying something to the effect of, you know, there's a costume competition for Miss Universe. This is the national bird. And there's always this toucan on a shoulder or perched somewhere.
Didn't parrots have a parrot on the shoulder?
Yeah, I guess.
Right? And nobody never said nothing because that's where the bird belongs, on one's shoulder, right?
Okay, so your view is?
My take on it, and I'm sounding off, probably going to get skewered. It is what it is,
Let's go.
You can't escape artificial intelligence, right? That's out there. It's the wave of the future, so on and so forth. What I believe it should be is a combination of genuine creativity, authentic creativity coming from the person who is tasked with doing this, and perhaps getting the aid of, or using AI as a tool to be able to portray, in this case, what the design would be.
Right.
So perhaps it's a marriage of the two things. Now, if one were to say, let's skip the creative aspect and just put in a prompt, maybe you're shortcutting it, and then the actual creatives would have an issue with it.
And
I
that
get
seems to be the
fully.
case here.
But at the end of it all, again, this is art, and art is very much subjective, right? So it doesn't matter, in a sense, how you came by it. It's what the final product looks like and who beholds it. It's in the eye of the beholder, as we always say.
Yeah.
Right? So that's my humble 2 cents on it.
All right. Well, mine is this, and I hear a lot of the feedback online, or I see a lot of the feedback online. I believe too that artificial intelligence is going to stay here. It's here.
It's
not going anywhere. But I definitely understand the concerns of graphic designers and creatives in general who express that they put their hard effort into creating these designs. I think when we look at the 3 submissions and how similar they look, I wonder if there were any level of creativity involved.
Sab, my 6-year-old son could sit with a pack of crayons and put in 2 or 3 hours scribbling and trying to make a masterpiece of it.
Right.
But if it doesn't look good, if it doesn't cut it, it doesn't cut it. So
Right.
the amount of hours you invested, in my humble opinion, is neither here nor there. It's the final product that matters.
Yeah, but we still can't say that in the case. We can't use that for this scenario because we have not been able to see the submissions from these
You're perfectly
designers
right.
as well. But it's a conversation that's being had. Thoughts on it? Do you think that AI should have been a part of the tool used in the costume competition, or should have authentic and creative graphic designers been the sole people to choose from? We want to hear your thoughts on that. But that does it for some of the things we think you should know. At this time, we do have to take a quick break because, as we mentioned, we are going to be taking a deep dive into the 13th Amendment and having a deeper conversation on that. So we're going to take a quick break now, and when we come back, that conversation starts.
Don't miss the ultimate singing showdown. It's KTV The Remix Season 7 every Tuesday night at 8, live from the Bliss Center for the Performing Arts. One stage, one voice, one chance to win $10,000. Get your tickets for just $5 at GBM Studios on Coney Drive or 88 Shopping Center on Central American Boulevard. It's music, talent, and entertainment for the whole family. Don't miss it. KTV The Remix Season 7. Tune in, turn up, and sing along every Tuesday night at 8. Only on Greater Believe Media.
Oh man, one more stroll and my data is done.
Wait, who said anything about running out? Smart just dropped a more powerful plan that now includes social media data, so you can scroll till your fingers cramp. Visit any Smart showroom to sign up today because connectivity just got even better. Smart, bringing people together.
Organic fun.
I gotcha.
man. Like, how it's done.
Already?
Hey, now who that?
This is the new era of the Mexican Caribbean. A whole spectrum of colors and hues, multi-dimensional cuisine, holographic beaches. The true new era is within you.
We at Fulltech Systems understand that technology isn't just a tool, it's a game changer. At home, smart devices and AI are revolutionizing daily life. In education, tech is making learning more interactive and accessible for students and educators alike. For businesses and government, it's driving innovation, streamlining operations, and unlocking growth, leveraging tech for better services, infrastructure, and security. At Fulltech Systems, we help you thrive with cutting-edge solutions, partnering with leaders like Dell, HP, Microsoft, APC, Fortinet, Cisco, and Tomie. We deliver the right products for your needs, whether it's boosting efficiency, improving customer engagement, or scaling operations. Connect with us and let's drive innovation together. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you come for the price, but stay for the service.
And welcome back. Joining us this morning for an extended conversation on the 13th Amendment and what it seeks to achieve are the Minister of Home Affairs, Karim Musa. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Attorney General Anthony Sylvester.
Hey,
gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Sabrina, good morning. Isane.
Good morning. So,
Good morning,
let's
listeners
jump
and viewers.
right into it, right? This proposed piece of legislation has caused quite a stir in Belizean society in terms of what this sweeping effect would be in how certain members of society move in their corners, right? So you have, on one side, proponents of this piece of legislation that says, okay, we're all for it and there's a particular reason and the reason seems sound. But then on the other hand, you also have opponents who are saying, no, this thing will impinge on one's constitutional rights and so on and so forth. Now, you guys are, in essence, the framers of this piece of law. Let's get your take from a layman's perspective in how this came to be, how you guys arrived at the point where you wanted to put this forward as a proposal.
Yes, so there are three very important aspects of the 13th Amendment, which I am sure we're going to delve deep into during the course of this conversation. The first aspect of it, which you can consider the more substantive aspect, is the fact that we are now moving away from declaring states of emergencies to declaring special areas. The second aspect of this 13th Amendment is the fact that we recognize as a government the intensity with which we are seeing an uptick in gun violence in the country. And we're not talking 9mm and 38 calibers anymore. We're talking big rifles that are being used on the streets of our country. And we want to create a specialized gang and gun court that would also be seeing an amendment to the legislation to increase the penalty for illegal firearm possession. And the third aspect of the 13th Amendment is the validation clause, which essentially says all lawsuits up until May 26th, I believe, 2025, those can proceed, but any thereafter, meaning for the past SOEs, there will be a statute bar on those proceedings. So those are the three aspects. Now delving into the first aspect, meaning the substantive of it. Let us recognize, just for 1 second, that in 1981, when we passed our Constitution, we included in there a provision that allowed for a state of emergency. Now, a state of emergency is not unique to Belize. We see it being used in Jamaica, we see it being used in Trinidad, and we have legal luminaries like Mr. McCoy, who is the Attorney General of Jamaica. He was the Attorney General of Jamaica, and he's a constitutional professor. He taught me constitutional law. He is the proponent of it in Jamaica. And again, it's similar provisions that we find in Belize, we find in Jamaica, similar states of emergency provisions. We have recognized that the state of emergency in 1981, as crafted for 1981, there was never that level of gun and gang violence in Belize. I think that's the first thing we need to recognize. And so in 1994, the then UDP administration passed legislation, not in the Constitution, but they passed it in the Crime Control and Criminal Justice Act, which allowed for a declaration of special areas. And so now you have these two provisions, the state of emergency and the special area declaration, because if you can recall at that time, there was an increase in the level of gang violence with the Crips and Bloods. It was getting more intense at that time.
And the Dragon unit was the one that lorded over enforcing the law at that time.
Correct. So that was the reason for the presentation of that legislation. I think it was applied in the year 2011 or 2012?
2012.
2012. The administration had applied the declaration of special areas. Then in 2018, I think because it was being used in the Caribbean, the administration, the government of Belize then applied the state of emergency because we recognized we had that provision as well. And so since 2018 to present, both governments, successive governments, have been utilizing the state of emergency as a life-saving tool, because essentially that is what it has become. When crime and violence among feuding gangs becomes so intense that there is constant retaliation among these groups, and that oftentimes leads to the loss of innocent lives in Belize, not just gang members, because there is this school of thought that says, let gang members kill themselves out.
But you have collateral damage.
There is collateral damage, and just in this year alone, think of Mr. Avelar, who died right here on Coney Drive outside your news station. Think of the young man Orozco on Ebony Street, who was just taking his child to school. Innocent lives, you know. Think of Miss Jones and her handicapped son. Those are 4 lives lost in just this year as, like you described, collateral damage. So the question is, what do you do when you have this kind of escalation in violence that leads to, yes, the loss of gang member lives, but also the loss of law-abiding citizens' lives? That is why we're saying we need to have a legislation that can counter this, because, as you and I know, Isani and Sabrina, in the streets, there is a code. If I kill Isani, Isani's family will not say it's me, even if they witness it. They will take out the retaliation themselves. There is a street and a gang code that we have to recognize.
It's understood at this point.
It is understood.
That's how it's played.
You cannot get a statement from anybody family who was involved in a murder resulting from gang violence. And so we recognize that problem. If you recall our former commissioner of police, and he wasn't lying when he said this, Chester Williams, he said, we know every single gun we bust, who bust it. He said that.
Yeah.
So then the question is, well, why police can't stop it? That's always the question.
The evidence.
Yes, because someone has to go in and give a statement. In order for us to charge someone, someone has to give a statement, or, as we have been moving in this direction, you have to have evidence like a CCTV camera, or you have to have forensic evidence. We recognize those are all complementing evidential material that we have been utilizing. But what happens when you don't have a camera? What happens when the gang say, well, we're going to commit the murder over there because no camera not there? So we need a legislation that allows space for the police that can hit the pause button. And what happens during a state of emergency? One, many guns and ammunition are taken off the streets. In just the last few SOEs, 130 guns, 2,000 rounds of ammunition taken off the streets of Belize. But nobody's talking about that. But imagine, that's 130 lives
Was that the result
saved.
was that the result of a swap, or was it the result of going into these neighborhoods and doing a sweep to
It is
collect these
mostly
records?
operations, Isani. It is operations within these areas.
Well, let's take a step back really quickly, because one, we have enough time to really look into this amendment. We do want to also include some questions from you guys tuning in as well. I know there are quite a few interested in this topic online. But one of the first conversations that we have been having is the title in itself. We're calling it special areas versus the state of emergency. We've had several persons on the couch with us from legal backgrounds look at this amendment, and one of the first points raised was sort of kind of like it's a different name, same story. What's your reaction to that?
It is being, like I said earlier at the introduction, we are fleshing out the state of emergency into the Constitution, but fleshing it out in a way that you're saying specifically. Because the state of emergency is only for public safety. It's very vague. Now you think of natural disasters and the looting that happens in natural disaster, and you might say, well, maybe that's what the framers of the Constitution wanted, for us to have legislation that addressed that. We're saying now in 2025, as was recognized in 1993, that we need to flesh it out more to say this is a crime-fighting, life-saving tool that we want to keep in our toolbox as a measure of last resort. Not something to be used every single day, but rather something to say, listen, this is getting out of control. The public is not participating, not giving statements, not getting evidence. We need to hit the pause button.
I'd like to parallel both of them and show our viewers how it differs.
Correct.
The state of emergency being in place, we know as a tool used to essentially ensure that the public feels a sense of safety when there are a rise in crime, at least for the case of the violence taking place, because states of emergency can be put in place for other reasons as well. How does that differ from the special areas and from the Constitution that we are now seeing being amended here? I want a clear picture of how the state of emergency is put in place and what those rules involve and how it differs for the special areas.
Sabrina, to go back to what Minister Musa was explaining, one of the operating rationale behind the need for the amendment at this particular time also arises from the fact that there has been two conflicting court decisions. So in one of the court decisions, one of the judges declared and ruled that yes, government can use a state of emergency provision to fight crime. Another judgment, the judge ruled no, you cannot do that. And in fact, the judge went further and to say, well, this should only be used when they actually arise public disorder to the point where it almost cripples the government's ability to have law and order be maintained. So the government is faced with this dilemma where you have two conflicting decisions, and as any government, any responsible government has to do, it has to ensure that there is certainty in the law, which is to your point. And the 1981 provision, as Minister Musa explained, they are rather general, deals with all matters of states of emergency and public emergencies. So it wanted to make it be very clear that where there are instances where crime has escalated to a particular crescendo point, that these are the provisions that are to be used. And we are not utilizing provisions which are new. They have been in the laws of Belize since 1994. And all that is being done.
Quickly, AJ.
Yes.
Couldn't this conflict between the opposing rulings perhaps be dealt with or clarified in the appellate jurisdiction, as opposed to the government saying, okay, you know what, we could skip any other processes and just seek to amend the law and have this be the end all be all in terms of the legal framework that deals with it?
So that's a very good question. So the matters are actually on appeal. So in relation to the judgment where the court said the states of emergency can be used as a crime fighting tool, those claimants are appealing. And in relation to the decision where the judge said that it's not, government is appealing that decision. However, as you are aware, it takes time before a matter moves through the appellate process. However, within the next 2 years, 2 to 3 years, whilst that move, the government or the state still would need to address citizen security. There is a real possibility that crime may reach a particular level where there would need to be the invocation, need to be the application of such a measure. And so what is being done is to say, yes, the court made these rulings, but for certainty, moving forward, these are the provisions that will be used to address the situation where crime has risen to a particular level.
Let me go in a slightly different direction, but still within the scope of what we're discussing here. In private practice, both of you gentlemen have defended or represented people who would have been written off as gang members. In your case, Minister Musa, not for anything political, but you've been an opponent, of state of emergency prior to taking office in 2020. You were harsh against what the then government was doing in terms of trying to curb crime or keep a lid on it. Now you find yourself in the very same position where you're referring back to the state of emergency as a means of being able to curtail crime and violence. How do you look at it from the other perspective, where one, you are against it, now you're batting for it?
That's a very good question, Isani, and certainly it does allow an opportunity for individuals like myself and like Anthony, who are proponents of human rights and the rights of all defendants in cases. It gives us the opportunity to reflect and to recognize the great privilege and position that we currently hold. Because yes, as attorneys, it is easy for us to criticize from the outside. And I would want to use that very argument to say that is why you should have trust in this process, because it is individuals like myself and Anthony who have seen, who have had oversight over this process to know that it's not going to result in the kind of rights deprivation that a lot of the fearmongers have been saying, a lot of the noisemakers. And so being in this position, Isani, you recognize that you're not just representing defendants, you're representing the families of not just the victims, but also individuals who are caught up in this life of crime and violence. The shooters, because some of the parents call me as minister, some of the victims' families, and say, Minister, why is it that you did not call a state of emergency? Why did you allow my son to be killed? And so there is a lot that is on the shoulders of us as ministers that was not on our shoulders when we were just attorneys fighting for the rights of individual members who might have had a grievance and who might have had their rights deprived unnecessarily or unjustifiably. And one of the things you might notice since our administration came in 2020, prior to 2020, in those states of emergencies, you would see a lot of people rounded up. Individuals who might not have been involved in crimes leading up to those states of emergencies, 2018, 2019, 2020. They were just rounding up everybody. And so one of the things we recognized is, listen, a lot of these individuals want to be a part of a process that can rehabilitate, that can see reform. They want to change. They don't want to be in that life anymore. So why round them up? And so what we look at from 2020 to 2025 is a more targeted approach. If you see some states of emergencies, only 30 individuals were picked up. In the last one, I think some 40, 45 were picked up. A lot less, a lot more targeted, because we, as lawmakers, ensure that the police, when they are putting forward this and this individual needs to be picked up on reasonable suspicion, they have to make out a proper case. And that is what this new legislation offers, Sabrina. Every single aspect of it, whether it's a search, there must be reasonable suspicion. Whether it's an arrest and detention, there must be reasonable suspicion. And so again, it's a lot more targeted, and it's not just the minister that's going to decide this moving forward. This is an important point, Isani. It's not just the minister, it's not just the prime minister, it's not just the commissioner of police that gets to decide this anymore under this law. It is an entire National Security Council made up of the military, made up of the Coast Guard, made up of foreign affairs, immigration. All of these parties who belong to the National Security Council must now listen to the report from the police and say whether it is justifiable that we now call an area a special area for 1 month. Similar provision to the state of emergency, now with greater oversight.
I can agree. I can see with that part where it's more than just one person or one group that's involved in the decision making. What I want to refer to at this point is what you mentioned earlier, the statute bar for all other claims that would come against the government based on previous SOEs. Now, while this particular issue, the most recent one where the High Court ruled both ways, was not an issue that formed under the People's United Party administration. Admittedly, it came from the UDP back in 2020, right? But my point here, or leading to the question, is the fact that when these young men were picked up, it would have seemingly been in an indiscriminate manner, is what we would describe as a dragnet, right? You cast, and then you have people who perhaps have legitimate reasons as to why they're filing a claim against the government of Belize for that. And now you're saying that based on this statute bar, they won't have that right to be able to challenge it?
No. That's not what is being said. So,
okay.
That provision in section clause 18 B of the bill, what it seeks to do, it operates as a validating provision. In other words, and this is nothing new. I brought an example. So in our current constitution, section 145, there is actually a provision which is called a validating provision. So that something that may have been done in the past, it is now being validated. In that particular instance, you have this relates to the BTL, BEL acquisition. So the government may have passed legislation, the court initially declared it to be unconstitutional. It was done a second time. When it was done a second time, the government said, look, so as to ensure, ensure that what is being done will be safeguarded, it was inserted in the Constitution. And that, if you were to actually look at that, read section 145 and look at the clause in the amendment, it actually mirrors each other. The other provisions in the Constitution, I think it's 75 or 79, which also is a validating section. So, for instance, in the House of Representatives, if the House were to conduct business and you have a member who should not have, who was disqualified, but you took part in the vote, the House proceedings and the result would still be considered to be valid. So, what needs to be firstly highlighted is that this validating section, this validating clause, is nothing new. It's in our Constitution. It is something that is utilized. I was sharing with the minister yesterday. I found another example. We have, for instance, an amendment in 2021 where you had a validation provision relating to the Court of Appeal Act, so that all hearings that may have taken place from 2004, and whether there was proper quorum or not, all of those decisions are being validated. So that's something, firstly, that has to be highlighted. Validating provisions are things which are part of the law, and there's nothing sinister, there's nothing untoward about it. Secondly, statute of limitation also is a part of our legal system. As things stand, you have a legislation known as the Limitation Act, which actually carves out a 1-year limitation period for persons to bring actions against the state. What the clause does, it actually puts a limitation period, and that limitation period is at the 26th of May 2025 when the bill was introduced. But all those previous claims that were filed and the judgment, they are still valid. Okay. So those persons' rights are not being taken away, they're not being extinguished. And I'm not quite sure how is it that we arrive at that point where it was thought that that was the purpose or that was what was in the bill. But if you actually read it, it's very clear that those persons who had existing claims and who had judgments against the government, those are still valid. And the only way those can be reversed is that if a higher court, an appellate court, were to then declare that their decision or the judgment in their decision should be set aside. So we just needed to make that extremely
Thanks for
clear.
the clarity on that. Yeah. I want to go in another direction now to speak on the consultation process, because when we poll, and this is an informal poll being done by us here at GBM, or even when we speak to the average man in the street, not too many people are actually familiar with what the government is setting out to do by way of this proposed piece of law. A lot of people are still very much confused, which begs the question, how much public awareness has been put into educating the masses about this particular move?
Yeah, Isani, and this was one of the points that the Attorney General and myself recognized leading up to the first consultation hearing. Is the amount of misinformation, and there's nobody to blame except perhaps ourselves and perhaps the administration in not coming forward, because yes, the Prime Minister did give an opening explanation when he presented the 13th Amendment. I've been on the media, I think twice, speaking of maybe one aspect of it, that it's an old law that we're just upgrading to the Constitution, but actually fleshing it out and having a discussion like this, I think is very important, and perhaps not too late, because it is a 90-day period. And of course, the ones making the most noise will of course get the most attention and perhaps the most traction as well. And so it's important to have this balance. But let me just say, Isani, that I think the consultation process is an excellent opportunity, and I'll tell you why. We have heard positions coming from the defense attorneys. We understand where their position is. They're against states of emergencies altogether. So the argument that they're having right now is a 1981 argument, because this law is actually better, has greater oversight than the 1981 state of emergency. But that's what they're tackling it from. In terms of why I say it's a good process, a healthy process, anytime you touch the Constitution, you must get this type of emotional reaction. I would have the same reaction because I want to learn more. I want to see where this is going, where this is headed. But on the margins of the consultation, the first consultation, one of the contributors came to us with an excellent suggestion. It wasn't on the mic, it was on the side. She said, ministers, in that 1 month period, why not include a provision that allows an individual who might feel they have been unjustifiably picked up and that there was no reasonable suspicion for them to have been picked up, why not include an emergency application to the court for that individual? So if I pick up 20 and 5 of them feel, listen, I don't know part of no gang, I ain't no boss no gun, I want to make an application. Why not allow an emergency application to be included in there to the High Court, and for the High Court to determine within that month on an emergency basis, an urgent basis, to determine whether or not there was any reasonable suspicion for that individual to have been picked up. Now that's something I am open to, and I'm sure the Attorney General is open
Absolutely.
to, and I'm sure the Cabinet will be open to, because it's a good contribution. And so that is the type of contribution that we're looking forward to during this consultation process, because we could say over and over that this is a better law than the 1981 SOE, but at the end of the day, people will still tackle it because they see it as you're touching our Constitution, and we respect that.
No. I just wanted to say, well, I hope that person actually puts the recommendation, the suggestion, which was made to us in writing, because what needs to be realized is that, appreciated, that this is a part of the House Committee's deliberation. So it's already been, the bill has been tabled, so people actually formally have to put their suggestions or recommendations in writing, so that the committee members, they could consider all of it and they could then make the requisite amendment. But that was an excellent suggestion, because that would then deal with and address the concerns that people say, but just have these young men or persons being locked up for a month, and they'll have to wait until the government actually establish or comprises tribunal. And this amendment, which I love myself, would allow for persons to be able to apply in emergency situation, and so straight away, you don't have to wait until any 30 days or whatever the period of the state of emergency. Because that's another thing. It says that it's up to 30 days. It doesn't mean that it has to be for 30 days, you know. And all of those considerations would be done by the National Security Council. So, for instance, when the matter is triggered and it is placed before the National Security Council, you would have persons who would say, but why only need 30 days? Why not 20 days or 25 days or whatever the case may be? So, again, these mechanisms which they actually are enhanced and better than the current SOEs, which doesn't allow for those.
We need to go to a commercial break, but I need to throw this in really quickly. So a lot of these young men who stand to be affected by this may not have the benefit of legal representation for judicial relief. So they get scooped up, right? You're saying that there can be an emergency application for the High Court to decide whether those who came in and swept them up had everything intact before doing so.
Yes,
a lot of these young men don't have attorneys on standby, don't have the wherewithal to pay for that kind of process. So in a sense, they're still very much marginalized.
Well, I would suggest otherwise. I've seen a lot of claims coming in and a lot of representations, and so I would disagree. There are attorneys who are, which I applaud, who are diligently ensuring and holding the government to task and approaching the High Court, making necessary applications for constitutional relief and otherwise when it should be. So there are attorneys out there who I'm sure would take up the challenge and approach the High Court on their behalf. No.
All right, well, we do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, the conversation continues. I know that there are several conversations surrounding trust in police as well, and if these persons in authority will be able to carry out their role without bias. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation.
My name is Leomar Langsert and I'm a teacher and I bank with Belize Bank Independence Branch. What I enjoy is the safety features that the app offers. I have a sense of not having to worry or be concerned about somebody finding my password and username to sign in the application because of the use of the one-time password. And another feature that I love, that I use the most, is how the app synchronizes with my fingerprint on my device. I enjoy the rapid and easy, seamless process to apply for loans through the Belize Bank, and I don't have to be having too much back and forth to visit or take time to visit the bank. They also start to offer the online applications through the app for loan applications, which I believe is very neat. I would definitely recommend Belize Bank to other teachers because one of all the features and advantages that the app offer, with these online that Belize Bank offered, is basically everything that you can do in the palm of your hand. So I would definitely recommend the bank to other teachers.
Welcome back. We're continuing our conversation with the Minister of Home Affairs and the Attorney General with respect of the 13th Amendment. Now, we want to go into another direction where this conversation is taking us. In Trinidad, you have the 6s and the 7s. Just as much as in Belize, you have the Crips and the Bloods, right? And so both governments are grappling with ways how to address this situation meaningfully. If we look at Trinidad as a case study for why officers in law enforcement in that country have been given what can be termed as sweeping powers. They don't need a warrant, they don't need a lot of things to just go into a neighborhood and pick people up and lock them up if they believe or suspect that they're involved in gangs and criminality. In Belize, we're saying, look, there's already an erosion of public confidence in the police department to be able to carry out its function in a civil manner. A lot of people are claiming abuse and so on and so forth. How do we know, or how do we take comfort in the fact that while they now may have this once it's passed, to come into a neighborhood and just pick up a group of young men, kick down your door if they suspect that you have guns and drugs or whatever the case may be, that they're not abusing this particular authority being given to them?
Yeah, so if I may just quickly, AG, I think we're dealing here with oranges and apples, but indeed some of these oranges fall into the apple basket in the sense that police carry out operations whether they're states of emergencies or not. Police will come into your home based on reasonable suspicion. There's no requirement for a warrant if they suspect you have guns and ammunition inside your premises. So that's something that's going to happen regardless, because the police might have intelligence that in fact you are housing guns and ammunition and drugs in your premises. So I think in that sense it's oranges, but it's probably more heightened when you have a state of emergency because there's a wide sweeping operation that takes place inside a special area as this provision here is proposing. And so what you then see play out, because people know that police are coming into my neighborhood, is that everything is documented. Police picking up individuals resisting arrest. That is very common because nobody wants to go to jail. That's the reality. But the issue then arises when you have the entire community coming out to defend an individual who the police are seeking. And so then you have that negative interaction between the police department and the community. But at the end of the day, I think that if we are to be objective about it, there has been a steady decrease in the amount of police abuse cases. We used to have the GSU that used to wear masks, that used to break down your door, that used to really abuse citizens' rights. We have disbanded that unit. We now have the GI3 that's more intelligence-led operations and a lot less abusive, if I'm to use that word very loosely, than what the GSU represented. And so, like I was saying, that's something that will always perhaps exist in situations where people are resisting arrest, but at the same time, you do see it more during an SOE.
You have a community like Mayflower, right? Ghost Town, where you have a heavy concentration of people living in one small neighborhood. So law enforcement descends on that community on a raid or what have you. And in many cases, in the aftermath of that operation, you have all of them lady will come out and they rail up about and kick down their door before they look for somebody or what have you. Are those complaints ever really addressed? Because it happens from community to community. Same thing happens in PIV where you have a concentration of people in land barracks, but not everybody they harbor, or not everybody has a son who's a criminal or wanted, but they too feel the effect of these kinds of operations.
And why can't you just charge a person for being a member of a gang?
Yeah. So very good question, and that is why that is the second important aspect of the 13th Amendment, is the creation of this specialized gang and gun court. So it's not just our recognition that in fact guns, the prevalence of guns and the high-powered guns that are on our streets that require us to address that in an urgent fashion, but there's also the issue of the gang legislation that Sabrina is referring to. Under our current laws, if you are found guilty of being the member of a gang, you are supposed to get a 10-year sentence for being the member of a gang. If you are a leader of a gang, you are supposed to, under our legislation, get a 20-year sentence. Imagine that. But what we find happening at our magistrates court level, and I can't knock our magistrates because perhaps some of them are in fear of their own lives, is the fact that when a defendant pleads guilty to being a member of a gang, we do not see a 10-year sentence. That's a reality. What we see is a $1,000 fine or a $2,000 fine. No kind of prison sentence whatsoever, when in fact this is one of the big problems in our society when it comes to crime and violence, is these gangs.
Here is the irony for me, right? So every so often, a group of young men are rounded up and charged for being members of a gang. But all gangs, if you look at their organizational structure, have a leader, have someone who they answer to. But in most cases, that very same leader is a person that's working with the LIU and what have you, but they don't get charged with being gang leaders. We all know who these players are. So what happens there?
So if I may just quickly, AG, when it comes specifically to that issue, the leaders have a good way of hiding their hands, Isani, and so the intelligence that we're getting won't trace back to a leader. So a leader might set you up to go do a shooting, but what the police learn from the victim is that so-and-so shot him. But how do you then prove that that shutter was directed by the leader to have done what he did? When you go to the leaders, you know what they tell you? Boy, them young boy, you can't control them. They got a mind on their own. I know even the deal with them again. That's what.
That's a couple. We've all heard the same thing. You from a law enforcement perspective, I from a reporter's end. That when you approach these young, and we are, like I said, we all know who the players are. When we approach them, they'll be the first to wash their hands off of it and say, "I got nothing to do with that. They young boy out of control," right? But when there's conflict and when there's ongoing tension, you don't go for the young men, you go for the supposed leaders. You sit down with them and try to broker some kind of truce or what have you.
The ones who the police have reasonable suspicion of are detained, but like what you said, in many cases the police cannot have that reasonable suspicion or cannot trace it back based on intelligence to the leader, and so it cannot be that we just pick up everybody the way we used to. And so, like I said, it's more targeted, that you pick up the ones that you know that you have reasonable suspicion of. But I take your point that in fact there may be bigger hands at play that are moving the chess pieces, and so again that would mean more people getting detained though.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go back a little bit on the issue of the prosecution of these gang-related crimes. So, as things currently stand, matters are being dealt with in the magistrates' court. The plan is, and the idea is, to have these be dealt with in a specialized gang and gun court. Now, in magistrates' court, the magistrates deal with all types of matters, traffic matters, and all other types of matters, including civil matters. So what you have happening is that a case may have started in January, but it's not completed through no fault of the magistracy until perhaps maybe within a year, because it's adjourned for a number of times. The idea is to remove that and to have these cases be dealt with as somewhat similar to in the High Court, which is why the amendment is to have the court have the powers of both a magistrate and a High Court judge. And so, and again, with respect to a specialized court, and it's nothing new in Belize having specialized courts. In other countries, you have specialized courts who deal with family matters, revenue matters, administration, estate matters, whatever. So the idea is to similarly have a specialized court. They deal strictly with gun and gang matters, and that will allow for expedited hearing. And that experience has shown it allows people to be brought and held to account in a very shorter period of time. And that has a domino effect. Persons are able to see they were charged in January, and also it also restores confidence in the public. And by October, that person's trial has concluded, and that person has been convicted. These are things which send a signal to would-be gang members and persons who want to get involved in the criminal justice system, and it also send a signal to the public that the system is working. So that was the rationale, and that is the rationale for that particular gang and gun court being a specialized court. No,
I want to really quickly highlight something that we've been hearing a lot of concerns from the public regarding general rights in these special areas. Persons feel that when police officers come and try to detain an individual, that all their rights are null and void. They can't necessarily pull out their phone anymore and record if they feel that they need to protect themselves and what is taking place. I want for both of you gentlemen to share with the public what are the rights that individuals may still have in these special areas.
So let me just start, and then Minister can come in. But so once the police is in the process of detaining you, so your right to free movement, that automatically is limited.
Yes.
Because if you were to run, you could possibly be charged for, obstructing the police officer in execution of his duty, escaping, etc. Really, I think sensibly, I don't see how, if the police is coming to arrest you, you can be allowed to take out your phone. And
can other individuals around pull out their device and record?
Certainly.
No one has ever been charged for recording, and I actually encourage...
Well, not necessarily charged, but we have seen video clips where police officers have told individuals.
And the police officer that slapped the individual's phone at Tropic Air, Maya Air, was charged. And so you do have a charge of assault if a police officer hits the phone out of your hand. What I have an issue with, because yes, I do encourage everyone to video record their interactions with police. What I naturally have an issue with is the fact of when you do find the video, it's a splice video that only shows the end result. They don't show you the part where they're hitting the police. That results, correct, aggravating the situation, resisting arrest, obstructing. I recall the issue in Paraiso just a few weeks ago. Those individuals had pint bottles and batons, and perhaps an argument could be made that the officer was using his baton excessively in the bushes, but in fact you don't see what triggered the police to have even reacted, because they are being attacked. And so there always has to be justifiable use of force.
In that incident there, and I think that's where some measure of discretion has to be exercised.
I agree.
We need to contain the conversation.
Even though the granny might be aggressing. I agree.
Let's contain the conversation to the 13th Amendment here, though. So there's a 90-day period that we're looking at. What does the timeline look like in terms of being able to take the consultations on the road? Because at the end of the day, it's not only a Belize City thing. Everybody from north to south, east to west stands to be affected once this goes into law. Let's go.
So, as I understand it, I don't sit on the committee. I was only an alternate sitting on the committee on the first consultation hearing that was held last week. And so my understanding is that the committee is planning a second consultation hearing in the Cayo district. I believe that should be, if not next week, maybe the week after.
When we think of consultation, one of the things that I've also considered was consulting persons who are specialized in the field of sociology as well, social workers, anthropologists. One of the notable figures that I have followed his work has been Dr. Herbert Gale. Has there been any consideration in consulting him for his study that he's done on gangs and crimes here in Belize as well?
Yeah, so there has not been a one-on-one consulting, but I think that Dr. Gale has many writings that he's published. He has appeared on your show. He has done a lot of public forums on crime and violence in the Caribbean specifically. And I have to say that a lot of what we take here in Belize is in fact generated from policies and principles as he has put forward. And one of the interesting things that may have surprised a lot of people when Dr. Gale appeared on another talk show was the fact that he endorsed a state of emergency. And I think that came as a shock to the host of the show, because he said there has to be a mechanism in place that you can hit the pause button. What he has recognized in the past is a lot of politicians might use it as an injection of morphine, he calls it. You don't want to get addicted to a state of emergency. You must use it only in exceptional, rare, last resort cases. And so, again, it's important for us to hit the pause button when there's this escalation to allow, and I was saying it earlier, to allow for us to get the guns and ammunition off the streets, for us to charge individuals based on investigation, and for us to have mediation. Perhaps the most critical part of a state of emergency is the mediation and intervention. And when you get to the bottom of it, Isani and Sabrina, you find that these young men are killing each other based on rumors. I'm here, Isani want to kill me, so I kill him first. And then that just spirals out of control, but it may never have been the case that I said I wanted to kill Isani. And so that is one of the reasons why a state of emergency, and as we're now proposing a special area, is important for us to have these mediation sessions.
I wouldn't want to dismiss. Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to add further, in response to your question, Sabrina, generally in terms of consultation and sharing of ideas, so there's this regional body known as IMPACTS, the CARICOM Implementation Agency for Crime and Security. So all regional countries are part of that, and so generally there is a sharing of ideas and engagement and discussion as it relates to addressing this very critical issue of crime and citizen security. And the ministry, both Ministry of Home Affairs and the Attorney General's Ministry, so we receive daily updates and information that is being shared. I think in Trinidad, I saw an email yesterday that they're having this training in Trinidad, and so these are things that in real time we receive, and we try to use the information to shape the policy and with respect to addressing crime.
I'm not here to discount or dismiss the work of any sociologist or social scientist where studying crime and violence in this region is concerned. I think they've done stellar work, but for me the issue remains the same. So if you look at what's taking place in Jamaica, we look at what's taking place in Trinidad, we look at what's taking place in Belize, and if you look at what's happening in the smaller islands within the Caribbean, because the movement of gangs and the stronghold that gangs have isn't confined to just these three countries that we're talking about. But social scientists and sociologists have studied this thing, have written about the thing, and it's only gotten worse, right? So while we take what they've put in writing and based on research and studies, it does not, for me, identify a clear solution as to how to go about doing so. And even if that's the case, it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah, so I have thoughts on that too, though, but I'll get your...
Excellent point, Isani, and that just goes to show you the complexity of crime, and even more complex the solutions that we're talking about. Because just now when you asked me the question, Sabrina, I only answered one of the things that is endorsed by Dr. Gale.
Yeah, and I wanted to also give feedback on that.
I didn't go to the very root of what Dr. Gale proposes, which is a social intervention into the lives of these young men in terms of economic opportunities, employment opportunities, mediation that takes place, and intervention that our LIU is doing. And so I want to make a very bold statement right now. 2018, we used a state of emergency. 2019, 2020. It never resulted in any drastic reduction in crime. It only paused the situation to allow police officers to do their work, to get guns off the street, to mediate. The difference between 2018 and 2025, where we're now seeing a drastic reduction in the number of homicides, is the LIU. That is the difference maker. And so you have an almost 50% cut in the homicide rate, which you're not seeing in any other Caribbean country, because they perhaps are not taking on this social intervention program that we have. But having said that, even though we're doing all of this work with the LIU, does that then mean we will allow only a handful of individuals who are not a part of the LIU, who do not want to change, to hold the entire society hostage, including law-abiding citizens? There must be a solution for that. And so, going back to the point I was making, I totally agree, and I always say this, and Anthony always says this: the 13th Amendment, the SOE, the 1994 legislation, those are not solutions to crime. Solutions are tackling it at its very root, which we're doing. But while we're doing that, we have to have a remedy also for the individuals who are hell-bent on wreaking havoc.
And I'm glad you made that clarification, Minister Musa, because I've also followed the work of Dr. Gale. I've also listened to his interviews that he's done on other media outlets, and I struggled to accept that he supported the state of emergencies, because he has been a proponent of all of these social projects to tackle the root cause of crime and violence in these regions. And so even your point that you mentioned, Isani, I struggle to accept that as well, because I don't believe that we are looking at the results of giving these projects and these initiatives a fair chance. Correct. Why? Because they're more long-term. Yeah. When we think of crime and violence, we think of the impacts that are happening right now, and the people that are dying, and the collateral damage that is taking place. And so while we recognize the importance of long-term solutions, there is also I guess we can say the state of emergency providing a shorter term solution for what is taking place, and we cannot deny that.
But many would argue that it's a band-aid solution.
And that is also why I mentioned the
Again,
SOE
not a
being a short term.
I don't even classify it as a solution. No, and that's how we need to change the way of thinking. It is not a solution to crime. You're not tackling the root causes.
Do you believe, because you mentioned that Dr. Herbert Gale said that the state of emergencies are effective, however, we shouldn't be running to it for everything, you know?
100%
do you believe that the current administration has been running to the state of emergency?
No, I do not. Nor do I think the last ones have. It may have been a larger net that was cast under the last administration, but I don't think that it has been utilized over and over again, or else this last one that we had, a month, so many people were saying give them 3 months, but no, we already
heard
done
the commissioner say
6
he
months.
He would be upset with 6 months.
But what you have to look at,
agree with that.
Yeah, he would not agree with that either. What you have to look at, Sabrina, is the level of threat, the threat assessment that is carried out by the police department. You have to look at the mediation and intervention sessions. And in this instance, the last state of emergency, it came to reality that in fact there was not that threat. For an entire month, I believe, after the state of emergency, when these young men were released, there was no crime and violence and no retaliation at that time. Obviously, with the recent spike with the gentleman on TikTok and saying what he said and the resulting violence, that's a whole other issue that came out that is unrelated to the last state of emergency. So I agree with you that you have to use a state of emergency, or in this case, a declaration of special area, only as a matter of last resort. One, to prevent the continued loss of life, whether of gang members or of innocent civilians. It cannot be something you go to every single month.
And to just to reinforce the point, it's a necessary and important tool that the state must have. I mean, recent events in Trinidad. So the current government, I think it's only two months since in its administration, and it had to implement a state of emergency that it was critical of the previous administration. So what this certainly to me shows is that it is an important tool that a state needs, and comments, criticism, critiques may be made, but ultimately it has to and it's necessary where it's justifiable and upon reasonable suspicion, and those mechanisms that have been inbuilt in the 13th Amendment, as we say, it actually is not there in the current SOE regime in the Constitution. So it's actually an enhanced and improved way in which addressing crime, detecting, investigating, and controlling crime would be able to be done in a balanced way, both in terms of the citizens' rights and in the public interest for the general citizenry.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we have one last opportunity to take a break and come back to you guys. I will encourage viewers tuning in online to also state your questions, because this will also be an opportunity for us to share some of your thoughts as well. We take a quick break and we come back with more.
Miss the Ultimate Singing Showdown. It's KTV The Remix Season 7 every Tuesday night at 8, live from the Bliss Center for the Performing Arts. One stage, one voice, one chance to win $10,000. Get your tickets for just $5 at GBM Studios in Coney Drive or 88 Shopping Center on Central American Boulevard. It's music, talent, and entertainment for the whole family. Don't miss it. KTV The Remix Season 7. Tune in, turn up, and sing along every Tuesday night at 8. Only on Greater Belize Media.
Let's all be safe during the rainy season. Belize Electricity Limited reminds you that heavy rains can cause flooding in your neighborhood and on roads. Avoid driving or walking in flooded areas, which can have hidden dangers such as debris and fallen power lines. Belize Electricity Limited cares about your safety. Please stay safe.
All right, so this is the final segment, guys. Welcome back. We're having a spirited discussion with the Minister of Home Affairs and the Attorney General, all things 13th Amendment and SOE. I want to start off this segment with a thought that comes to mind, right? And this may seem a bit kind of off, but perhaps it's fitting. When you look at something that stands to affect a vast majority, in this case of Belizean population, would you look at perhaps the tenets of the rotary four-way test and ask if it's true, fair, and beneficial to all concerned, given the chatter both for and against something as controversial as this?
Yeah, you always, Isani, have to take a very balanced, measured approach when you're coming up with amendments, especially to the Constitution. You have to look at the lay of the land of what is actually there. And so what a lot of people do not realize is that, say for instance, the government abandons this notion that we need the 13th Amendment, and we just continue with what we currently have. This government will probably still use the state of emergency because one judge did in fact say that it's constitutional. And even if the CCJ were to rule that the 2020 SOE was misapplied, not that it was unconstitutional, it was misapplied so much that it became unconstitutional, that does not make states of emergencies unconstitutional in and of themselves. If you misapply it, meaning you call a state of emergency when there was no need to call a state of emergency. Or two, the individuals who brought the claim, there was no reasonable suspicion for them to have been detained. Therefore, that application to them was not appropriate. What I'm getting at, Isani, is that the state of emergency will remain legal, and so governments, our government and governments after us, can still use it, which in my opinion, this declaration of a special area is better because there's greater oversight and it's fleshed out as a crime fighting tool. And two, the 1993 law is still there. We can still declare a special area. That has never been challenged. In 2012, when the then administration applied it, it was never challenged by anyone who might have felt their rights were disrespected or deprived. And so we have two pieces of law, the SOE and we have the 1994 Crime Control and Criminal Justice Act that provides these tools. What we're saying here today and what the government is saying, we're offering a fleshed out 13th Amendment that addresses in more particular detail a state of emergency, declaring it a special area.
Here's my concern, and perhaps you're going to get a bit political where this is concerned. We're dealing with an administration that, for all intents and purposes, has a supermajority in Parliament. So, if this were taken to a vote, easily you guys could write this into law the following day, right? But
it does require the Senate approval.
Which is, can be argued is a rubber stamp, but
no, it's not. No, it's not.
Right?
So many bills have been rejected in the Senate.
Not of recent.
No.
Fair enough. My point is, this comes at a critical time where the opposition is dormant. And even if it was a bit active, there are only 5 on it. So on one hand you have 26, on the other hand you have 5. Once this becomes enshrined in our Constitution, it will be difficult to undo it unless if there's another supermajority that succeeds this particular administration from the opposition. I'm saying that in the balance, if the masses of us feel as if though this thing not to work for we or whatsoever, it will be the most difficult thing for us to strike off the books or go back and undo.
But there's always the court. So you can approach the court if if there's a belief that the 13th Amendment was misapplied, or even if there's a strong belief that the 13th Amendment in of itself is unconstitutional. That mechanism and that availability still exists. So citizens still have the opportunity to address through the judicial process this 13th Amendment if it were to be passed into law.
There's a question coming in from a viewer here saying, would tourists be told to avoid the designated areas? People living in these areas will also be discriminated against and will try to then move out of these areas.
So having an area being declared as a designated area doesn't mean that there'll be curfew and other provision. It's all determinative of the state of play that exists and the reason why a particular recommendation would have been made to the National Security Council. So it all depends on the facts that are at play. But certainly the law and the mechanisms in place is to do away with that arbitrariness and also minimize the incidences of discriminatory application.
All right.
I just want to expand on what that
like yourself. we're from both similar type communities, and so we know.
In a community where you have 2 of the most dangerous gangs in this city, if not perhaps this country, and they are in geographic proximity of each other, right? So that when there's any conflict between the 2 groups, you have a lot of innocent people who have to traverse that area to go to school, go to work, go about their business. In the past, when there has been a state of emergency, it's a dissension of police officers and BDF, and everything is pretty much locked down, right? And in that mix, you do have people who legitimately come forward and say, look, I don't feel safe in my own home, not only because the gang elements were there wreaking havoc before, but now you have police officers and BDF who are on the ground who create a sense of unease in and of itself. So how do we deal with perhaps the psychological impact of a community being designated as a special zone or being locked down under an SOE, and the movement and that overall sense of security may be false or fleeting?
I'll be honest with you, Isani, I've heard this position before, but it really is the minority position, at least from what I've heard. The majority of people will tell you that during a state of emergency, my child can go to the park, my child can walk the street at night with me in their company, of course. We feel freer in our communities, and that is where we have to understand that the call for SOEs has been coming. It hasn't been coming from Corozal or Cayo or PG. It has been coming from the communities that want a safer community, a safer Belize. They're saying that, listen, for that 1 month, I have never felt so free in my life, because the very same gang elements that you speak of are behind bars, or there is this cloud over the ones who haven't been detained to behave themselves. And so that, in my opinion, is the prevailing sentiment. But I do get what you're saying, that when a state of emergency is declared, that for that first day or two, you do have that swarm of police officers come in that go after these young men that are giving trouble. So I do accept that part.
Here's another question coming from a viewer. If it is put into the Constitution, then how can it be challenged as unconstitutional?
Because, you see, that's one of the beauty with the judicial process. It allows for anything, even a constitutional amendment, to be challenged as perhaps being in contravention with some basic structure, as it were, of the Constitution. So it can. And we've had decisions from our High Court, from a CCJ, which affirms that and grants that opportunity and avenue for citizens to still bring challenges to constitutional amendment to court. No?
I also want to ask about the National Security Council and the members that will be included in that. What will go into determining who these members are, and will there be a member considered from the community level?
So there is currently a National Security Council Act legislation, and that body comprises the Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Home Affairs, the Attorney General, the CEOs in those respective ministries, and the head of their security services, being the Commissioner of Police, the Commander of the Coast Guard, and the BDF. Because it's a National Security Council, you cannot really have involvement of
civil society,
because it's very highly sensitive material that is being considered. But what I would say is that the representation of persons from civil society and from the community, those certainly could be ventilated through the LIU program. So the Minister with responsibility for Home Affairs would be abreast of what the community is saying through that program, no? And that in turn would be ventilated at the National Security Council level, no?
How effective has the Leadership Intervention Unit been in the context of these flare-ups of late? We look at that situation the other day where the young man regrettably took to social media, made some veiled threats, and his family ended up being killed.
Yeah, so
how has the LIU been able to get in that and perhaps try to quell what would have been an otherwise messed up situation?
I don't think that anybody, Isani, could have foreseen the very unfortunate tragedy that unfolded in that community that day when Miss Jones and her son Luke lost their lives. I don't think anybody could have even imagined that that was where gang violence was going to go, because there's always been this understood rule amongst gang members that one, you not touch family members, especially mothers, especially handicapped, especially children. That has always been out of bounds until that very moment. And so even though the gentleman took to TikTok and said, I know no, wouldn't mess with that, he was speaking somewhat of a truth, because that has never happened before. But just to show you the brazenness that now exists in our country, not just in terms of the level of guns that they're using, but the mindset that these young men would actually take what he said and then carry out an execution of his mother and his brother unbelievable, unprecedented, and nobody expected that. And so, even though it's not as though he said, go and kill my ma, so that wasn't a threat. He was saying, uno wouldn't dare do it. And that level of intelligence never came to police. It never came to the LIU. And so that was one of those instances where it could not have been predicted that they would actually carry out such an act. Now, where the mediation happens after that is that the rival gangs would start threatening each other, and that is where the leadership intervention unit comes in to try to quell that situation, to ensure that there's no ensuing murders that take place.
So where do we go from here? We know that the consultations with the public continues. Unfortunately, we're not able to always have engagements like this where people viewing can share their comments. But for persons who still have questions and concerns, how can they voice that?
Well, they can make written submissions if they do not want to come to one of the consultation processes. The next one, like I said, will be in Cayo, and we will advertise the date for that. But there is a provision that allows you to submit your recommendations or your objections to the bill. If it is that you have an objection to it, you can submit it in writing to the committee, to the National Assembly. I can get the actual email address for you where this can be submitted.
So that has been a valid concern, and indeed trying to create or have a mechanism where, as far as possible, all Belizeans' views can be obtained on something as so critical and important. Ironically, so when Karim's father was Prime Minister, they had passed a legislation, amendment to the Referendum Act, and there was actually a provision which allowed for the holding of a referendum where there would have been any possible amendment to the Constitution affecting fundamental rights and freedom. That was removed from the Referendum Act. But I'm just throwing that out there to say that coming out of this perhaps shows that maybe we should go back to consider that being something to be part of this particular process moving forward. No?
Do we feel that the consultation is enough to ensure that the public gathers all the information that they need on this particular bill?
I believe the period of time, and I think more has to be done by Anthony, myself, other members of cabinet in explaining the position. I think that we have to try as best as possible to avoid the misinformation that takes place, because I heard one attorney get up at the consultation and say these SOEs are of no value because nobody's ever arrested coming out of these SOEs, and that is a grave piece of misinformation, because just out of the last SOE we had 4 arrests, 1 for an attempted murder and 3 for murders. So I don't know how they can't see the value in that. And so it's important for, yes, the naysayers to have their say, but at the same time for us to flesh out what it is are the actual facts surrounding the 13th Amendment. And so the consultation process is extremely valuable. I urge everyone to take part in the discussion. Crime is not just a policing issue, it is a national issue. Let us try as best as possible not to make it political, because it's quite easily one of those footballs, so to speak, that people will use in order to gain some political points. But let us try acknowledging that we are all on this ship together. Let us craft a legislation. If you have constructive input that you want to make into it to make it better, we're definitely open to that.
Minister, before I let you go, I can't not have you in a set and not ask the next question, right? On Friday, you provided the contract for the retired Deputy Commissioner of Police, who is a special advisor to CEO Saldivar. Special advisors.
To our ministry.
Yeah, to the ministry. Yeah. Okay, so special advisors may not necessarily be a new thing, right? And the contract, from all appearances, seem above board and what have you. And I'm not a lawyer, so I can't really get into the details of it, but it seems clear. The question I still have is whether or not this is absolutely necessary, and is it not something that perhaps the CEO can do independent of having anybody else at that level to provide the advice? Sorry.
Yeah. we found it necessary, Isani, like I had mentioned on the last occasion. There is great value coming out of Mr. Guzman. It was a recommendation from the former Commissioner of Police. He actually wanted Mr. Guzman to be attached to the police department as opposed to the ministry. But we saw where it would have been a better fit in terms of providing guidance and counsel to our ministry in his duties as a special advisor. And so there was a lot of work that is still left unfinished that he required an additional year to finish up. He has assisted in identifying countrywide repairs to police stations that were necessary. He assisted in retirees in clearing the backlog of all the pensions and retirement benefits for retirees. There's such a huge backlog, and he has worked well there. He's working on our animal welfare bill, and so these are things that are going to be tied up in the coming months, and his contract expires in February of next year. And so we don't foresee the need to hire him for an additional year next year, but certainly his contribution has been invaluable and perhaps raises the discussion of whether age 55 is really the age that we should look at as the retirement age, because there's so much that he still has to offer. And I know that that's a discussion that we're having with the unions, possibly extending the age of retirement to 60, because at 55 there's still a lot that Mr. Guzman has to offer.
One could rationally argue that a department or an individual within the department can be assigned to those specific roles as opposed to bringing back someone who has already been put to pasture, so to speak.
Yeah, I wouldn't want anybody to say I've been put to pasture at 55. Like I said, Mr. Guzman has a lot of institutional knowledge. He was a deputy commissioner of police, and I believe that is the great value that the former commissioner saw in him in terms of his contribution. He certainly relied on Mr. Guzman a lot in terms of advice with the police department. And so we found it as a necessary tool moving forward at the ministry to have Mr. Guzman in our corner.
Well, gentlemen, this has been quite a wonderful conversation. I think we've been able to get a lot of questions answered. I hope that our viewers also found this useful to them. And so we really thank you guys for taking the time to come and speak to us. And we wish you guys all the best.
Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity for us to share the government's perspective.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
All right, we take a quick break now, but don't go anywhere, because when we come back, the conversation switches into Fiestarama, bringing bowl celebration to Orange Walk.
This is where blue innovation meets green ambition and orange creativity thrives. Join us for the Belize Investment Summit 2025, September 3rd to 5th at the Sunset Caribe in San Pedro. This is the future of regional integration, and it starts here. Whether you're returning home, expanding regionally, or entering new markets, Belize welcomes you. Why Belize? Why now? Belize Investment Summit 2025, Bridging Markets, Building Resilience. September 3rd to 5th, Sunset Caribe, San Pedro. Visit investmentsummit.bz to register and be part of shaping the investment frontier.
Let's take a journey through the core functions of the Social Security Board. It all starts with registering as an insured person, employer, or self-employed individual. Sign up for a portal account to manage your Social Security information online. Just provide accurate information and click Create. This will give you access to a range of services and benefits. Next, your contribution, along with investments and other income, are collected and distributed into 3 funds. This ensures that the SSB fund is securely utilized to support various benefit programs. The SSB is committed to providing essential benefits such as sickness, maternity, injury, and pension. These benefits are paid out to eligible individuals as a part of the Social Security coverage. We help you navigate through life's challenges with financial security. Annual surplus accumulates to grow the fund each year. This surplus is invested into various industries, contributing to the growth and development of our nation. With each passing year, the fund continues to grow due to the annual surplus and interest revenue earned from prudent investments. This surplus, along with reserves, helps to bolster the SSB fund and provide a safety net for those in need. We've arrived at the end of our journey to better understanding how the SSB works. We remain committed to serving you and building a secure future for all Belizeans.
Oh man, one more scroll and my data is done.
Wait, who said anything about running out? Smart just dropped a more powerful plan that now includes social media data so you can scroll till your fingers cramp. Visit any Smart showroom to sign up today because connectivity just got even better. Smart, bringing people together.
Welcome back. We are continuing our conversation, and this next topic is all about Fiestarama bringing bold celebration to Orange Walk. We are joined by two event committee coordinators of Fiestarama. We have here with us Melissa Cadle as well as Emery's Franklin. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome.
Yes, it's a wonderful feeling coming into the city early in the morning, you know.
Yeah.
And we came here this morning all hyped up and energized to speak of our fair and to tell you guys, come to Orange Walk August 2nd and 3rd.
Because it's a big celebration.
Yes,
and it's also a part of
it is.
tradition
Yes.
as well.
Fiestarama started back in the 90s, and I don't recall the exact year, but it was in the 90s that Fiestarama started. And the then mayor decided to do something for the town. You know, Benque has its fair, San Joaquin has its fair, everybody has their celebration, but back then Orange Walk was the only town that didn't have a municipal activity. And that's what they planned. And it stemmed down from all the mayors coming behind that person and following that tradition.
Yeah.
So this current town council now, we make sure that we live up to the tradition and of course the love of our community for Fiestarama. Everybody looks forward to end of July. They know that it's going down, Fiestarama.
I think one of the really cool things about this event is the way that it's evolved, and now it's seemingly not only for the municipality itself, but it's an invitation to people even outside of Orange Walk as well to come and meet the people of Orange Walk, learn what they're about, engage with some of the small businesses as well. Let's talk about that, the opportunity that exists for small business owners, entrepreneurs to engage with people outside of Orange Walk.
Well, actually, we're actually inviting all different business from not only what from within Orange Walk town, you know. So and it is really good, you know. We want people to bring their flavor, you know, to Orange Walk, so that it can be really good, you know, bigger and better this year. And it is a fair that we actually it's a back to school drive.
Okay.
You know, for the kids. So you know, like giving back to the kids, it is like really good, you know. It is like, so you have a really good feeling, you know, putting that smile on those kids' face. So we are like asking all the vendors, you know, come on out, you know, so let us put those smile on those kids' face, you know.
What will be different about Fiestarama 2025 versus anything else that Orindrakeños or Belizeans have seen before?
Our lineup, our activities, the difference that we try to bring. We try to put a little bit of something for everyone. For example, on Saturday we kick off with an under-13 football competition.
Yeah.
So we know football is a very big sport in Belize, especially amongst young people. And this under-13 competition, I'm not sure how you guys view football, but in Orange Rock we're very competitive. And if my son to play, my whole family to come out, and you have your whole cheering squad.
Yeah.
So that's how we do football. And having that under-13 competition is involving the kids, involving the young men, and their family as well. So that's going to be Saturday morning. That we're gonna let that run through. Then in the evening, we start off with entertainment. And we have a wide array of entertainment. Fiestarama sound, straight out of Belize City. We have Mr. Jaraz, our in-house DJ from Orange Rock. He'll be there. Sweet Pain 3.0.
Wow.
In Sugar City, Saturday night. And of course, techno band for the Latin lovers.
Wow.
So you get a little bit of everything, so that nobody could complain and say, oh, but I can't dance punta, so I'm not going. Techno band is there for the cumbias and the nicer music. For the younger crowd who wants to party, we have Sweet Pain, and of course we have Fiestarama. We know that Ras and Jaro are two of the hypest when it comes to music on the song.
Yes.
I want to talk about the Cabalgata.
That's for Sunday.
Okay.
So Sunday we start off at 11 o'clock. The gates open from 9 o'clock in the morning. And Sunday, the events will start off at 11. We have a Cabalgata parade.
Okay. What is that again?
A Cabalgata is a show of horses.
Yes.
All the beautiful horses. And we have the dancing horses
we
as well.
had that at the agricultural showground just a couple months ago.
Yes, so you have a Cabalgata, which is a show of horses and the dance horses. And they have their own parade. They have their own dancing.
I heard that's a complete spectacle on its own.
Yes, the horses. When we were planning it, the organizer told us that there are 3 different sections. And I'm like, this is not carnival. And he's like, the horses, certain horses dance to certain music.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the first segment of horses dance to a certain type of song, and then the other horses dance. I'm like, okay, I did not know that. I thought dance was dance, but they go to the different tune of different songs.
Okay.
So they're in different categories. So we'll be having that parade.
There's also a vehicle show.
We have a car show, some beautiful cars coming in from Chetumal, Quintana Roo, and they're going to be a part of that parade as well. So the cars will come in and meet up on Queen Victoria Avenue along with the horses, and we parade down Cinderella Street straight to the stadium and get the activities started.
I'm interested in the food. Because Orange Rock is one of those municipalities or one of those districts really where Belizeans gravitate to for all the different culinary choices.
Yes. So I'll let Emery's tell you about the different stalls and foods that we have.
Yeah, so so far right now we have like different food, like mainly everyone know Orange Rock that a place of tacos.
Tacos capital.
Yes. Yeah, so we have the best tacos out there. You know, we're gonna have the best tacos out there. You know, I am also trying to like invite like the different neighborhood villages, you know, to come out and bring out your different you know, like your reinos, you know, because we want it to be something different, you know, not just tacos. You know, we want it to be like reno. We want to, you know, to have different variety of food, you know, so that everyone can come out and enjoy, you know, that you can actually pick from different, you know, food. So so far we still have we still have space to available for the vendors.
And there's still time.
Yes.
Sort of.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We still have this week to go.
Yeah.
So let me finish telling you what's going on Sunday.
Okay.
After we get to the stadium with the Cabalgata and the car show, We have a dog show at 10 o'clock in the morning, and the judge is coming in from Cancun, so he wants to see all the best show dogs on Sunday. We get into the stadium with the cabalgata and the car show. We have a greasy pole competition. It's being a long-awaited return of a greasy pole.
Yeah. What's a greasy pole?
So they're going to erect a pole in the middle of the field, and they're going to
there you have it.
Oh my God! Grease that with hard grease or lard, and then it's in groups of 4. At the tip top of the pole, there is either a bottle or a bag which has prize in it, or in this case,
bring that down from there. So.
In this case, the first person to take down the flag or the bottle or whatever in the top, the group gets $500.
Oh my goodness!
So
don't do that at home, kids.
In groups of 4, and it's fun because remember this thing is heavily greased.
Yeah.
So the more you think you could climb, the faster you slide down.
The slippery it gets.
Yes. So that's for Sunday as well. We're trying to create a family ambience. Everybody come out and enjoy and have a good time. And I know Greasy Pole is always entertaining for family.
Yeah.
So along with that, we have Father Jesse. We have Panorific Steel Pan from Belmopan coming in. We have Bossa Bee Band. And we have Los Tios. Los Tios is a newly formed group of young people from Orange Walk. They were out at the Greek show as well, and they did an excellent presentation. And they decided that they want to showcase their talent at home since they're from Orange Walk. They want to let the Orange Walk public see what they got up. So all of that, plus food, drinks galore. But let me not cut you short from Saturday night. We have a Pro FC fight happening.
Ooh, okay.
Yes.
You guys should have started there.
We have so much going on. It's a little bit, like I mentioned, it's catering to everyone. So if you're someone who likes fights, you can go under the pavilion. The cage will be set up there, the chairs there. You can enjoy Pro FC. If you only want to come out for Sweet Pain, you come and you get in front of the main stage and you enjoy that. If you're a football lover, that will happen throughout the course of the day.
And the best thing about this fair is that you actually just going to pay a little fine to get into that gate.
And then you have access to everything. So what's the fine?
$10 adults and $5 for kids.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that $10, when you pay that $10, say for example you come out Saturday and you come out for the football. You pay your $10, you get your wristband. That wristband is valid for all day Saturday night for the dance as well. So you can go out, enjoy the football, come back out, go home, get dressed, come back out Saturday night, enjoy the Pro FC, because remember your band allows you to go into the Pro FC fight, come to Sweet Pain, dance, enjoy yourself, and all of that for $10. Sunday, if you come out early for the dog show, you pay your $10, you get your band.
You have access to
And
everything
you
for
have
the remainder of the
access
day.
to the cabalgata,
to the
everything.
Yeah.
And the guys from the cabalgata recently informed me that they will be having, there's a section at the stadium designated specially for them. So while the horses rest after the parade, they start off with their events in the later evening. We'll have barrel racing, pole bending, and arena race with the guys from the cabalgata.
Nice.
So the horse people can get their time to enjoy. If you're into muscle cars, you got the car show. If you like just music, we got Panorific on the stage and Bossa Bee with Los Tios. If you want to enjoy the greasy pole, you can do that, or you can just walk around the grounds, enjoy all the food and drinks.
There's really something for everyone here. This obviously sounded like an initiative that took a lot of planning as well.
Yes, it did.
I have to ask, do you have any sponsors that are involved with this that you'd like to highlight?
We do have our sponsors, and I just want to say big up to everybody involved. My committee members, Adriana,
Miss Faride, Dalila.
Dennis, Dalila, Wilson, Alejandro. I mean, there was a point when we were planning this when Friday came and I looked at them and said, guys, I know I said no name on my phone screen this weekend. Monday.
Yeah.
And as an idea pops in my head, I'm the first one to message in the chat. And they're like, don't you want to hear from me? But, you know, it's just the planning and getting all energized for it. We like to big up our sponsors, Bellikin, Ministry of Agriculture, AAA Imports, Blue Creek Insurance Company, the Belize Tourism Board, and RB's Multi-Service. And of course, it's brought to you by the Orange Walk Town Council.
All right. Well, ladies, this has been a pleasure chatting with you and talking about the excitement that's set to take place. We do want to remind persons who are interested as vendors that there's still time to book a space with you guys.
Yes.
For those persons who'd like to do so, they can reach out to...
They can call 380-2053 or they can send me a WhatsApp message on 672-1702.
All right, fantastic. Well,
and guess what? We forgot to mention the mechanical rides are on their way to Orange Walk.
Fantastic.
And just a little hint to those who want to contribute or come out. All the proceeds after we pay off our bills goes to our back to school program. With the funds from Fiestarama, we purchase school bags, and we pack these school bags with all the goodies the kids needs for school. Composition books, rulers, folders, markers, everything. And we give this back to the needy children in our community. So the more you guys support us, the more funds we make, and we can give back to more children. So this is how we get funds to give back to the children.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we wish you guys all the best.
Thank you.
We take our final break now, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, we wrap things up.
Is your classroom in need of a transformation? Benny's B-Box is giving one lucky teacher the ultimate classroom transformation experience. Just fill out the Google Forms on our Facebook and Instagram pages. Be sure to tag and share #Benny's Classroom Makeover. But don't wait, submissions end July 31st, 2025. Visit our social media pages for more info. Don't miss your chance to get back to school ready with Benny's and B-Box.
Oh man, one more scroll and my data is done.
Wait, who said anything about running out? Smart just dropped a more powerful plan that now includes social media data, so you can scroll till your fingers cramp. Visit any Smart showroom to sign up today because connectivity just got even better. Smart, bringing people together.
As an athlete, orthopedic health is very important. Our bodies can be so strong and yet still so delicate. Injury is something that we cannot prevent. We could try to mitigate the risk of extreme injuries. However, it is very, very important that you know and understand your body.
As we get older, our bones are getting softer. It's hard to treat degeneration which already happened. The first treatment is a lifestyle modification and the support of physiotherapists. I am Dr. Sergey Adonin, an orthopedic surgeon, and we are watching Caribbean Medical TV.
Be viewing Caribbean Medical TV on this station.
Unwrap the joy of crystal clear picture and sound from Iowa, the brand that offers you affordability and exceptional quality. Iowa has a wide range of exceptional products to choose from, such as TVs, speakers, headphones, home appliances, and much more at affordable prices that won't break the bank. Enhance your audio-visual entertainment experience with Iowa, and for your convenience, parts are readily available in country for hassle-free maintenance. You can find Iowa products at your local electronics store countrywide. Choose Iowa, the best in home entertainment and household appliances.
Coming up, get ready because it's crop over time. A friendship contribution to children with cancer, making a difference for those with special needs. African culture expressed through fashion, and another reward for a job well done. It's all next on this station.
ultimate singing showdown. It's KTV The Remix Season 7 every Tuesday night at 8, live from the Bliss Center for the Performing Arts. One stage, one voice, one chance to win $10,000. Get your tickets for just $5 at GBM Studios and Coney Drive or 88 Shopping Center on Central American Boulevard. It's music, talent, and entertainment for the whole family. Don't miss it. KTV The Remix Season 7. Tune in, turn up, and sing along every Tuesday night at 8. Only on Greater Belize Media.
Welcome back, and thank you for sticking with us. We are wrapping up our show this morning, but we can't do so without saying a huge thank you to everyone who joined us this morning, and also you guys for tuning in, engaging, and asking your questions, sharing your thoughts on, of course, the conversations that we have been having. And as we wrap up the show, it is July 22nd, and it's also a Tuesday, KTV Tuesday. And tonight's going to be super fun, Isani, because it is rock and roll. Yeah. It is alternative night. And if you're interested in hearing our contestants take the stage and try their hands at alternative rock, you definitely want to tune in to tonight's episode of KTV The Remix. You can also purchase your tickets. They're sold here at our studios on Coney Drive, as well as the 88 Shopping Center here in Belize City. They're only $5. And you can go and get the in-person live experience. I think it's going to be one to remember. But that does it for our show. If you're celebrating a birthday today, happy birthday to ya. And if you'd like to give a birthday shout out, or if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also catch us on Facebook, that's Open Your Eyes BZ, as well as Instagram for behind-the-scenes contents, that's OIE Belize. You can even text us or call us on our OIE phone number, that's 675-2555. But please do us a favor and join us again tomorrow when you open your eyes
to start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
Have a wonderful Tuesday, Belize. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank, our country, your bank, and Smart, bringing people together.